Here we
Yeah.
go. Welcome to West Virginia and Commonplace. Today I have with me an amazing lady. She is all the way from Melbourne, Australia. If I'm correct on that, she'll correct me if I'm wrong. Her name is Harley Sinn. Harley Sinn, please tell the audience who you are, because that is the biggest question that comes into a podcast when someone comes on. Tell them who you are, why you were here today, and then the next question I'll ask afterwards.
Okay, so first so think Melbourne, like a fire burns. That's often the shortcut for how to say it. I'm a performer, I guess just all-round creative on the internet. So I kind of just follow the dopamine to whatever interests me, which means that I get across a lot of platforms and a lot of different audiences, and often a follower or a fan will suggest something and be like, yeah, okay, why not, let's give it a go, and some things stick, some things don't.
Okay. And inside content creation, you do a lot of different things. You're a Twitch, we'll say a video gamer, and you are a model, and you model across the board. You're modeling, I want to say this, it goes from science fiction to deeper fiction, because you do some stuff with Star Wars, and then you have an array of different things that you do. Now, inside this, you have an exercise that you can see on Instagram. There's this ring that you're in. And if you wouldn't mind to the audience, can you explain to them this ring, how you got to starting using this ring, and all the pop culture that goes along with being in Australia?
So the exercise is called Lyra. So lots of people know silks. Lots of people also describe it as, oh, that thing that Pink does. But it is basically just a metal hoop that's hung from the ceiling, and you do tricks in it, is the really short version of it. And I kind of actually got into it because I don't know about over there, but here in Australia, there was a period of time where everybody I knew was doing a pole dancing class. And so I was like, okay, cool, that seems fun, I'll go give that a go. And it turns out I was terrible at it and hated every minute of it. And the teacher that I had at the time was like, you just do it for a whole lot of things. And I was like, but I can't just do it. What am I doing? And so I was like, screw this, I'm finding something else. And at the same time, somebody I knew had promoted that they were training at an aerial studio that had just opened. I was like, oh, that seems more interesting. Nobody's really doing this. I'll give it a go. Fully expected to walk in and be like, no, I hate this too. It turns out I just hate all exercise. But immediately clicked with my trainer. She's got a very analytical mind like I do, so she's very down to break stuff down and go, how else can we approach this so that you actually understand it? And yeah, it was originally just something that was going to be I'm making a little bit of an effort to be fit, it's just for fun thing, but you get a bit hooked over time. So yeah, I've been doing it for ages now.
Okay, and initially when I seen it, I was thinking of Circus Soleil,
Yeah,
and all that
so
stuff. Go ahead.
it is a skill that started in circus. So it was something that once upon a time you could only learn by kind of joining a circus or committing pretty heavily to acrobatic school and things like that.
Okay, because that right there, I was kind of like, wow, seeing all that stuff. Now, going further on, you are in Australia. Now, let's do something real quick. Can you give us 5 things in Australia that are only in Australia that are not outside of the culture? Because people, understand it's like with the culture, people take Crocodile Dundee, people take Steve Irwin, and I know there's other things that they take from the culture, but those 2 things are the biggest, things. And Crocodile Dundee, a lot of it doesn't even pertain to Australia. But what are 5 things in Australia that are nowhere else?
I will say I think both of those things very much lean into an Australian sense of humor. So like a lot of it's fictional, but it's not as ridiculous as it seems when you get here. So I live in Melbourne specifically. We've got a really big coffee culture here, and it's actually quite common for it to be really hard to find Melbourne quality coffee in the rest of the world. Sorry, excuse me a second. My dog is just demanding he be the star of the show. So yeah, I think an unexpectedly great coffee scene in Melbourne in particular. Everybody knows about our animals. So we've got the crocodiles, the kangaroos, The emus, all the things. Fun fact, the only war legally recognised as being fought on Australian soil was with emus, and we lost to the emus.
Now, I will say this about the emus: we do have those here in America. They are something that it's an alternate meat for ostrich burger.
So they're similar too, but I'm pretty sure that they're actually slightly different birds overall.
Yes.
So, but very, very similar. Yes. What else? What's that? We've got two things about our weird animals. I think one of the really interesting things about Australia is we actually hold on to a lot of cultural identities. It's really common here for people to say, where are you from? Even to, like, I always joke that I'm the kind of Australian where an ancestor stole a loaf of bread and here I am, because we did start off as a convict colony. Peanut. But people will still, for me, be like, oh, like, where are you from? Where's your family from? Sorry. Peanut, you are not the center of the universe. Stop. Yeah, so people do really hold on to that, even many, many generations in. They'll still identify as being, say, Vietnamese or English or Irish or, you know, wherever it is that they're from. Whereas I know in a lot of other places, when you move somewhere, you become, for example, it's like, yeah, I'm American. Like, my family's from Vietnam, but I'm American. So we do very much hold on to kind of people's cultures and history in that kind of way. Unfortunately, we don't hold on to our own super well. Our Indigenous population doesn't get the same courtesy. But yeah, no, it is a really interesting kind of thing. What am I up to? I've lost count.
I know you were doing good. You were talking about the Indigenous, and that's one topic that one day I'll have to have you back on, and I'll have to get someone that's Aboriginal to come on about, because that's something that is it's a subject that people hear about, but we don't talk too much about. But digging into you, as Harley Sinn, that's your pen name, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And one thing that I always like to ask content creators, we don't want you to expose your real name, but where did this name come from, and how did you derive it? I wanted to say Harley Quinn, but I don't want to
It
go
was
that
a
far.
Harley Quinn thing. Give me 2 seconds. I'm just going to pick my dog up and move him so that we can stop having him scratching everything in the background. Give me 2 seconds.
Now, there was something that was on your Instagram. There was the word beer wench, a professional beer wench. I need you to explain it to me, because once again, this episode is very exciting for me because I'm learning about a different culture.
Yeah.
So please tell me what a professional beer wench is.
Okay. I will circle back to how I chose my name, because I don't think I actually answered that.
Okay.
But a beer wench is essentially, I mean, I suppose that's a little bit of that Australian humor there. So I do a lot of bartending in amongst all of the other things that I do. I don't like to sit still for very long. So it's kind of just that, very much that joking about serving beers, and, you know, I guess it's a little bit like that. I don't know if you've ever heard the term like pirate wench or things like that, where it's like that,
yes.
you know. Yeah. So similar concept, where it's, you know, the woman in the background with the too tight corset and all that kind of thing. And I'll often joke with our regulars and like my customers and things like that, where it's like they'll be sitting there politely and I'm like, oh, you're too polite to just be like, oh, hey, get me a beer, wench. And of course they never would, because they actually have some respect for me and what I do. But if they did, they'd be joking anyway. But yeah, so it's a little bit of a, like, a nod to that, and a bit of that kind of silly sense of humor, and that way of, I guess, demonstrating, especially to other Australians, that I'm not taking myself too seriously. Because I do often get that, oh, I thought that you were really stuck up, and then I actually spoke to you and you're really cool and relaxed. And so it's, you know, that people don't look at all my photos and be like, oh, she seems like a bit of a bitch. Excuse my language.
That's fine.
But yeah, like, she seems really stuck up or really like up herself or things like that. It's like, guys, I'm the last person to think that I'm someone important. And I think especially in this day and age, content creating and things like that, even if you are successful at it, doesn't necessarily make you important outside of the niche that you're in. Because often, I mean, even you say to a lot of people something like PewDiePie, who's one, like, the biggest YouTuber ever, and if you're in that space, or you're interested in gaming, or you're interested in YouTube or content in that kind of way, you're like, yeah, I know exactly who that is. But if you're outside of that bubble, immediately you're like, sorry, was that words? Does that mean anything? And so yeah, it's that thing of like, no matter how big I get in content spaces, and I'm not particularly huge in any of them, But yeah, no matter how big you get, no matter how successful you get, you are successful within a bubble or within a niche. And outside of that niche and that bubble, no one cares. You're not that important. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the two things that are hit. So the simple short answer is it means bartender, but in a way that's a little bit silly and not taking myself too seriously. And yeah.
Okay. And we'll circle back around, like you said, to where did Harley Sinn come from?
Yeah, so when I was picking a stage name or a pen name, I was at a venue, and I originally I was certain that my persona was going to be Lucy Hunter and it was going to be amazing. And then Lucy and Hunter were both taken, so I couldn't have either one of those. And I had to panic choose a name. And I said Harley, thinking Harley Quinn, being like, they're going to say, no, that's taken too. And I'm going to have to be like, I'm going to have to come up with some really weird random name. Oh God, what am I going to do? And then they went, no, Harley's free. That works. And then when I started performing, doing stage shows, I needed a full name. And I was like, well, I've already got the Harley Quinn thing going for me, so I may as well go Harley Sinn.
Okay.
Yeah.
That works out there, and that makes sense. In the line of work that you were doing when you're dancing. Now let me ask you this. We'll go into the actual artwork on what you do on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Who is the creative mind behind all of this? Are you the creative mind behind some of this or all of this?
So it's a combination of things. The Star Wars stuff started with something that I did myself, and then one of my friends went, oh, that's really cool. I also had some people who went, hey, we're doing a May the 4th party, would you come in costume and do that? So that kind of expanded out from there, and then it started. So my friend was the one who was like, what if we did this as a life drawing session? So it kind of built out from there, but that did kind of originally start for me as my own idea. And if you scroll back far enough, there's a stormtrooper helmet that's the original photo. But a lot of it is working with different creatives where we might just throw things at the wall and see what sticks with a few different outfits and have a play around. A lot of the stuff with the lingerie brand Not Saved has worked that way, where we will just kind of get creative. And I mean, obviously they supply the outfits given that they're a lingerie brand. But yeah, we just kind of play around and see what works. And then there's other ones. So a couple of photographers that I work with who will have a really clear concept and be like, I want to do this. And that is one where I'm kind of just leaning into their creativity and their creative stuff. I really like playing both creator and muse. So I do a lot of life drawing, or a little bit increasingly more. And I have always really enjoyed that. My mum was an artist, so it's really natural for me. Often I get there and they're like, wow, you managed to stay really still. And I'm like, because you guys are way less terrifying than my mother, who wouldn't like let me move at all. I think it's natural for family where it's like if you're drawing someone you don't know, you're like, oh, she moved a bit and it kind of ruined my drawing, but that's fine. I'll just adjust to the new movement or the new pose. But when it's family, you're like, oh my God, I will kill you. But because I started kind of doing stuff for her when she was painting and drawing, I kind of always have that in my head when I'm doing it. So they quite enjoy it. But yeah, I really like playing muse to other people's creativity. But then I am a pretty creative person myself. So I do like coming up with concepts or being like, so I've got this idea. What do you think? And trying to match that to the right creative to help me make it happen.
Okay. Now I've got some content creation questions because this is the amazing thing when you do a podcast. When you do a podcast, you never know what gems come out of the show, but then there's a important factor that I like to get out of everyone that comes on that is a content creator in anything. The augmented world to the real world. There's a certain type of pressure because even I deal with it. Like it's not necessarily that I have a persona, but the instructional videos, the different things I do on TikTok, they're exciting, this and that. And then I've had people that have met me in real life and they're like, hey, you're down to earth, you're different. Sort of like you said earlier about how people have a certain perception of how you may look to how you are. What are those pressures like being in the augmented world and then taking that over to the real world and then vice versa?
Okay, you're back.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm not sure what happened there. It's probably good old Australian internet. That's the other thing we have. Terrible internet. So pressures of kind of augmented self versus real self. I actually often use the I think increasingly for people that kind of celebrity quality, I think people don't appreciate often enough that like obviously when, say for example, an actor is in a movie and they're playing a character, obviously they're not that character. Like, you know, nobody thinks that Captain America is real or any of that kind of stuff. We get that. But when they're doing an interview to promote the movie, they have to be in this role where they're themselves, but they're the best version of themselves. So, you know, they're not going to come on and be like, yes, my cat just died, my boyfriend and I just had a fight, you know, whatever is going on in their life, I've just had the worst day ever. You have to put all of that aside and show up as the best version of yourself. So it's kind of hitting that thing where it's like you are not disingenuous, you're not real to who you are, but you're not necessarily giving everything away. And I think the hard thing about those online platforms is increasingly, especially, but finding that sweet spot where you're not so presenting the best version of yourself, where it's really, really curated, and then it reads as not particularly real, or it reads as too perfect, and very much that thing of the, like, you know, oh, everybody's Instagram is their highlight reel. And so allowing people to see a little bit past that without being like, hey, here's my like credit card number, and, you know, giving away too much of yourself. And yeah, it is just that kind of deciding what it is that you're prepared to share with the world and what you're not. So for example, I'll never put my brother on my social media. I'm happy for people to know that I have a brother, but I'll never put him on my media. I don't really put any of my family up there, but particularly because he's not 18 yet. I don't think he's in a position to consent, and down the track maybe that will change, but given that he's a pretty private person, I doubt it. But yeah, so it is just that kind of deciding what you are willing to share and what you're not. And a large part of it for me is anything that I'm not ready to have outside opinions on. So I, you know, don't necessarily want strangers to comment on stuff that I'm working on, like, you know, whether it's personal growth, or if I'm working on a creative project and it's still in that messy raw stage and I'm not ready to have people weigh in, because Lord knows people love to weigh in, and anything that affects other people is where I tend to kind of draw that line. Within that, it is really something that I've always just been really intuitive about and gone, I do err on the side of sharing less rather than more, but increasingly as I've embraced that content creation and those roles and things like that, and coming onto a platform like Twitch, for example, where you are kind of talking as you're doing stuff, you're going to naturally allow a lot more out than you will when you're focusing on, say, even an Instagram story, which is more candid again than an Instagram post that you've taken and edited and done all that stuff with. So yeah, it is, like I said, it is, a lot of it's very intuitive, but there are some hard lines for me that I won't cross.
And I appreciate you giving that to us in this episode, because people think that you have to give certain levels of intimacy, like more access to your life in certain realms, and in certain areas like that, that's where I put a cap on, like with what we do. The more intimate, if they want to see more stuff that's behind the scenes, no one's going to just be able to see the front of my house, because with the job I do, I travel all over the United States. So you'll see me in a city somewhere, I will give you that, you can see that I'm somewhere. But like you said, that level of access is the hardest thing that you have to hold back from the augmented world. And in the real world, the one thing that gets me is, like, I had to be very careful, because I didn't realize that, you know, people listen and they follow and they see what you're doing. But in certain instances, there's people that are more than just a fan. They're the stan, you know, from the Eminem song. And that is the next question I have for you. Has there been any time that you've had to just, you know, sit back and say, hey, I'm not going to push this content issue because of overzealous fans?
Not so much for me, but I guess because I started kind of as a performer and in an environment where, I mean, as a showgirl, you don't have a stage name just for the hell of it. It has always been a security thing. So it's something that I guess started before I was on social media, where in person, I'm very kind of cautious about what I share with people and how much I give away. One, because the person that you're talking to, you don't necessarily know everything about them. You don't know, I mean, plenty of venues have had customers that they've known for years, and then they've found out that they've got these massive criminal charges against them and they just disappeared overnight because they've gone to jail. And everyone's like, that guy, really? Oh my God. So you often don't know who you're talking to because you don't talk to them outside of the setting of the bar or the venue or wherever it is that you're at. But also, and I say this often to girls at the bar I work in now, you don't know who's listening down the track. So there's a couple of things there where even say a customer comes in and he's like, hey, do you want to go out for a drink later? And you say, yeah, sure, no worries. You know that he knows that you've got a partner and he's really chill about it and you're just going to be friends. The guy three drinks down, who then asks you out and you're like, no, I don't want to do that, will take it personally. Whereas when you go, I have a blanket rule that when I'm working and I'm here and I'm happy to chat to you guys. So the venue that I'm at is quite small outside from our football days. We often have heaps of time to chat to the regulars and get to know them, or anybody who comes in. So we can have those kind of relationships that can feel very intimate, but making sure that you have that kind of hard line there is really important. And I think, like I said, thinking about not just the person that's in front of you, but the person that's three stools down listening translates really well to social media, where it's like, you know, imagine that you're always talking in a space where somebody who is not necessarily the person that you're talking directly to, but within earshot, can still hear what you're saying. So maybe 90% of your followers, you could show them the front of your house and they would never do anything with that information. They'd just be like, oh yeah, cool, like nice front door. And not think twice about it. But you've also got to be considered of the people who are, I guess, listening in on that and do have those kind of bad intentions. And because I've always approached it from that angle, and I've always been somebody who will demand respect. So I don't care really if you don't like that. Respect is free. You don't have to tip me. You don't have to do any of that stuff, but you do have to be respectful of me. Again, in person and online means that often when people do go, why do you do that? I can go, well, even if you're fine, I can't guarantee that everybody in this space is. And so out of respect for my safety and out of respect for me being not having that stand kind of fan have too much information or be able to be a menace, stop asking me these questions. And generally what I find is that people will, or if they won't, they're probably the person that you don't want to know that information anyway, so I don't feel that bad about denying them.
Okay, and I thank you for that. Only one thing I want to correct you on, you said demand, but you don't demand respect, you command respect, because commanding it, and the only reason I clarify that right there is because you don't have to demand it just for your persona, you command it. You can just tell that.
Well, sometimes I do have to remind people that that's not a box you can choose to tick. You either do it or get out of my way. And I've got no issue turning stuff down. Like I'll turn opportunities down. I will turn money down. I don't care. Because I don't know. I guess it's that thing for me. If it doesn't feel good, what's the point? I don't want an opportunity that will make me thousands of dollars, but I'm completely miserable the whole time. I'd rather have less opportunities that I have to work harder at or things like that, but I feel really good the whole time I'm doing it, because how something feels, obviously we've all got to pay our bills, and I'm not, you know, I'm lucky to be in a position where I can turn money down. But yeah, being able to go, I will walk away from opportunities if they're not respectful, if they don't feel good, is something that really does allow me to, I guess, command respect, because I can go, there's no other options here. You don't have a choice.
And how does that make you feel? Like knowing that you have that much control, because not everybody has that much control. Some people are signed in and are contracted to do things. You know, you have all that creative control. How does that make you feel?
It is a really good feeling. It's not something that I've always had. I was actually talking to my mum earlier about how nice it is to have fuck you money, and how that changes the way that I approach even jobs, where I can approach bosses with more, and I feel so bad for you guys in America. Some of your labor laws are really interesting. But being in a position where if my boss says, so you're just going to have to do this, I can be like, I absolutely do not have to do that. Like that doesn't work for me. That was not the agreement that we came to. I don't think so. being able to approach everything in that way from the start means that it's one of those weird things where it seems really counterintuitive, but approaching jobs in that way means that then people go, oh, okay, so I don't have a choice. Like, I have to treat you this way because I don't have a choice about it, because you will walk away from this. People often will just go, oh, okay, well, then if I have to, if I don't have to, then I'll walk all over you. But if I have to, all right. And it's allowed me to, the bosses that do want to walk all over me or do want to kind of push those boundaries, it has allowed me to walk away from those and to then be in a position where I can go, like, I really like my boss. I really respect my boss. I think that she's somebody who's really considered of the people around her. You know, she's the first one to jump in and work with all of us. But I also have a very great relationship with her where she knows I'll push back, but I also know that, you know, sometimes she'll be like, all right, Harley, come on, suck it up, help out. And we can have those really frank conversations. But I do really, it is not something that I ever am not grateful for, because I really do appreciate that it's something that I've had to work a long time and very hard to get into this position. And it is a position that some people, no matter how hard they work, never manage to achieve that. So I'm perpetually grateful to be in that position where I can walk away if people don't meet me where I am. And I do think it's really sad that so many people are in a position where they feel like they can't push back ever, when a lot of the time me pushing back doesn't lead to me getting fired. It doesn't lead to me getting pulled up or being the problem employee or things like that. It leads to people going, oh, yeah, I hadn't considered that. I'm so sorry, my bad. And then changing the way that they act towards me in a way that's really positive. So I get to have these great jobs and these great opportunities that are available to other people, but they don't have the capacity within themselves to demand that level of treatment or to you know, set those boundaries for themselves.
Yeah, and it's a good way to get conformity to what you would like and not be, you know, you stand your ground, they stand their ground, but you let them know, hey, this is how this should be for me. And I really respect that. Now, in all the content creation you do, and we haven't talked about the Twitch, we'll touch on that a little bit because I know your schedule's a little tight, so I won't dig too much into it. But all right, but in content creation, from being the model to working at the bar to dancing selectively nowadays, right?
Still a fair bit, but I don't work in venues anymore, so I just am booked for private functions, but I'm still doing it every weekend. So
okay. What do you want to accomplish, or what are you accomplishing with each facet of content that you're creating?
So I think for a lot of it, I really am somebody who for a long time always was like, you know, a jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing, or a bit of a dilettante or things like that. So Melbourne, Australia got locked down real hard throughout this whole coronavirus pandemic thing going on. We spent a lot of time not able to leave our houses. But one of the upsides to that is it gave me the opportunity to kind of really spend some time with myself. And I discovered over the course of that I have ADHD, which so I guess post lockdown and post pandemic and all that stuff, the thing that I've really been focusing on is following the dopamine or following the things that I enjoy, because I know that I can apply myself really hard to things that I enjoy. But the second that something isn't providing me with that dopamine or with that joy, it becomes an incredibly hard thing to do. So at this point, I know everybody's constantly, I think with every woman on Instagram ever, is like, when are you getting an OnlyFans? Why don't you have an OnlyFans? All that kind of stuff. Doesn't bring me joy. I'm not going to do it. But I'm less focused on kind of getting those results, getting the like immediate payoff or the immediate numbers. I thankfully am able to pay my bills without it, even if I never become so much as a partner on Twitch or whatever. The affiliate, I think it is the first one. I mean, I will make it there. But even if I never was to be able to do that and even be able to monetize in the smallest way, I can just kind of follow the joy. And what I have found in my life is that throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks really does. I often find opportunities that I never expected to have that become a great source of joy, a great source of profit, a great source of yeah, I guess like a life plan that I wouldn't have been able to plan for, or a life path I wouldn't be able to plan for. I also really enjoy, I think that one of my strengths in person and online is having a strong community. Like I have really great people. I've had, there's a bit of a thing in that a performer and showgirl kind of community of the like, oh, nobody's regulars last more than 2 years and then they want too much and they don't know where the boundaries are or things like that. I've got regulars that I've had for 10 years now, and is still very respectful of my boundaries. And so yeah, I guess for me, I'm really focused at this point on just on a few different platforms, really building that community where I feel really connected to everybody and I feel like I'm really enjoying that kind of stuff. And I find that the money and the business and all that kind of stuff tends to naturally follow. So
Okay. Now,
yeah.
real quickly, let's jump over here to Twitch. Everybody goes to Twitch. Twitch is something of a phenomenon. And me and you both know, being content creators, that is an untapped bubble for a lot of us. A lot of us, because to me, and just in understand audience, I'm giving you this little insight because a lot of people don't think about this. Twitch and maybe TikTok are the last two things that haven't been fully touched and algorithm into a way that you can't get new, like, well, with Instagram you can get new people to follow you, but eventually it just becomes a place where it's a reminder for people. Twitch for me has been this deal where like I meet new people every time. Like when me and you are done with this, I'm gonna go put this little game right here on Streets of Rage, and I don't even play it that much. Just throw it on, and I know that it's gonna pull in a certain amount of people, and they'll come listen. So for you, you play V Rising. V Rising is a fairly popular game to a degree, but you could have jumped on Fortnite, you could have jumped on PUBG, you could have jumped on anything. What made you decide to play V Rising? And tie us into your video game involvement in life.
Yeah, so I've always been a gamer. I grew up playing, like a Nintendo 64 or a PlayStation. I always joke that I was the one of my relatives who got the Game Boy Color. So I had the really high-tech one and everybody was very jealous. So, I've been, and my mum played Tomb Raider when I was a kid on, when she still had square features and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's always been something that's really just actually been part of what I do. I've never been I know for me when I was younger, when people were streaming games and things like that, it was like you had to be a pro level gamer, and I've never been that kind of person. I enjoy just playing things for the pleasure of playing them, which I think is a big part of why I didn't go for, say, Fortnite or PUBG or things like that. I've played Fortnite once with one of my friend's kids, and I still don't actually know what the hell you're supposed to be doing or what any of the buttons do. I was terrible, and I'm happy to say that. But yeah, so for me it was, if I'm going to do this thing, I've had people requesting that I do Twitch since I started talking about things like the Arkham games when they were new. So it's been something that for me I put off for a really long time, because I think there is that level of vulnerability of being live, and anything you say or do or things like, look how many people's Twitch fails make it onto YouTube compilations and things like that. God forbid. But it was something that it took me a really long time to get comfortable with that level of, I guess, vulnerability. And I think it took a while for me to really appreciate the fact that a lot of people don't care about watching someone be a pro gamer. Sometimes that's what you want. Sometimes that's, I know for me, when I was playing Hollow Knight, for example, not on Twitch, I really liked looking at videos where somebody was really good at something, so that I could be like, what am I supposed to do in this section of this game? I'm so stuck, especially for any people who've played at the White Palace, where it's just the like worst platformer that doesn't relate to any other part of the game. So you're just there being like, how do I not face plant something that wants to kill me? I don't understand. So being able to see how people did that, it's useful to see somebody who is really, really skilled do it. But a lot of the time it is a bit, I guess, humanizing to watch someone suck and watch someone fail. And I have found actually with playing V Rising, so that was something that one of my followers suggested. And then another follower was like, wait, your birthday's coming up, I want to buy you a video game. I was like, well, this has just been suggested as something I'd really like. Why not that? But it was something I found I have gained a few followers from me just being like, I don't understand. What am I doing? Where am I going? How do I do this? people like being able to come in and help and being like, hey, I've got this knowledge about this stuff. You press this button or move this here, or this means this. And actually, they're much better tutorials than the games themselves, but they also give people the satisfaction of being able to come in and help. And I definitely think that I'll experiment with playing different games and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't choose V Rising because it was popular necessarily. I just was like, we'll play something that I enjoy. And I think people pick up on that. People can kind of smell, I guess, when you're like, I really hate this game, but it's really popular, so I guess I'll do it. This is the worst. Seeing somebody do something they enjoy, it might be a slower build for a platform, but you're going to, again, have a more engaged community, which is the thing that's really valuable to me. So, having a smaller community of people who are really invested in what I'm doing, are really invested in me as a person, is more important to me than playing the most popular game.
Yeah, and having 10,000 followers that don't care, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. And I tell you, that's an amazing game. I actually am a Diablo player, and I love
Diablo.
I love Diablo, and the only reason I don't stream it is because I know it's going to have that same kind of following, like the people that do Skyrim and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like, it's heavy. So one day, I figure when it gets cold again, I'm going to bring Diablo out one more time, and I'm going to stream it somewhere and do something with that. So thank you so much for that. So now, the end of the show, I pay homage to an American news magazine, which it's actually a television show. It's called 2020. 2020 is a show that was originated with three people: John Stossel, Diane Sawyer, and the greatest reporter ever, Barbara Walters. Barbara Walters, Diane Sawyer, they ask amazing questions. John Stossel is the comedic relief in this. So we'll do a John Stossel question real quick. And the first one is this. You're a Star Wars fan. What is your favorite movie and your character? What character do you like?
I don't know about favorite. I think favorite movie, I'll always have the nostalgia factor for the first few. I don't know which one specifically I'd pick, but nothing will beat that nostalgia factor. Favorite character, I think probably Princess Leia. It was really amazing watching her go. I mean, after I'm like, the early ones are my favorites, to watching her kind of in the later movies become a general and really come into her own as a leader, rather than just being someone who's, often the princess in movies is just that decorative character and just that, romantic lead who's really there for the male characters to have more character development. I've got a soft spot for Carrie Fisher too, so I guess there's probably some of that not separating the art from the artist that makes me like her. But yeah, no, I think hard to beat that one for being a really great role model for my generation of women. To go be a leader. Why not?
And I like her, and I also like what they're doing in Skywalker. I mean, with not Skywalker, with the new the Kenobi series. If you haven't seen that yet.
No, I haven't gotten across all of the new ones. Then
I won't tell you. I won't tell you anything. I'll just say that there's a Princess Leia there, also.
Nice. Okay. I'll go. I'll make sure.
A new adage there. Now, getting deeper into things. Being a content creator. No one ever asked you this question, and you probably have never been asked this. And if you have been asked this, I'm asking you again. What do you do for self-care? Because inside of all this, you never know that all the labors of love that you do, even if it's a picture of you and your dog, that may move someone. But everything you do takes mental energy, and every positive thing we put out in the world is a mental plus. But we get mental anguish from the negative parts we receive. So how do you what is your self-care? Because that's one of the most important things that people don't get to hear. People don't ask. It's not that they don't care. It's just, you're a content creator and they're like, oh, you have it all figured out.
Yeah. I think that's something that I probably, again, kind of have to, as tough as it was, thank all of our lockdowns for. Because prior to that time period of being forced to stop for a really long period of time, I really didn't take care of myself. I just went. And there was a lot of me being run down, or me not giving myself time and space that just felt normal because I'd been doing it for so long. I had very demanding careers before this one, so it was kind of natural for me to place the same demands on myself when I was my own boss. and push really hard. So kind of post all of those lockdowns, I guess slowing down. So really making sure to schedule time where I'm not doing anything, or I'm not required to be anywhere. I'm not required to do any of that stuff. And I can just mentally decompress. Spending a lot more time with friends. So I've really put a lot of effort into building forced time with friends into my schedule, whether that's making the effort to plan something, even if it's weeks out, so that that's then locked into my diary and I can't use that time for anything work related, or building projects in with my friends. So I'm working on a podcast with one of my friends that started as conversations we were already having, and obviously has expanded out from there. But for us, it's that thing of, she was saying somebody went to her like, oh, what have you had to cut to do that? And she went, I don't have to cut anything. We were already having these conversations. The biggest thing is that we're just hitting record now. So yeah, like, as much as it's still work, it's work that's focused around, rather than just working for the sake of working and working for the sake of ticking those boxes, it's working on projects that then force me to like, oh no, I have to spend every week, I have to spend at least a day with one of my friends having really interesting conversations. What a terrible time, what a terrible thing to be doing working. So yeah, I think it's a combination of being more conscious about the time that I'm blocking out for stuff, and then being more conscious of what I am doing, even if it happens to be for profit or for public consumption. Same thing again with aerials. That is something I was doing before lockdown, but I know I got back there to my teacher and was like, oh my God, I can fix so many things just being able to exercise out a lot of stress and anxiety and all of that kind of stuff. I do think exercise is really important. A lot of content creators drop that. Because it's easy to sit at your desk for hours and hours and hours and, be editing photos or videos or podcasts or whatever platform you're on, or be playing video games on Twitch for 8 hours straight. But doing something that's really physical, I think, is really important. It's been shown in a whole bunch of studies that the way that we release stress and release trauma is by physically moving. So doing something that is just about going for a run, doing aerials, doing pole classes, do Pilates or whatever it is that works for you, weightlifting, but going and spending some time physically in your body, I think, is really helpful as well. As all of the mindfulness practices and all of that kind of stuff.
And I thank you for that, because that is one of the hardest things to tell people, because people think we're all invincible. Like me, for instance, I'm a collector of Pico projectors, like they're small projector size of a can, and I show random movies. I bootleg movies for a living. Sorry, people that make movies, but whatever. So let's go deeper and deeper, because that's what the conversation is for, and that's why we're here. In America, we have this thing called a billboard. A billboard signifies that you've made it. I don't care if you've got 10 million followers on whatever you're on, you're an IG Live model or IG Live influencer. If you have a billboard, you have made it in the world. So coming to the States, in Australia, you go to Sydney, because Sydney would be the place that I would have a billboard somewhere. Your billboard is in Sydney. What does it say, and what is the message you're going to put across on it in Sydney? Now, I know that when audience you're thinking about Sydney, you're thinking about that. Is it like an arena or something that's near the water or something? I'm talking about like actually inside the town, if there's a place that you get put the billboard.
You'd probably be hanging it off the side of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. I think the big thing for me, so prior to the professional beer wench thing, my bio or whatever, and it is actually something we're using for the podcast, or repurposing, I guess, but the like big boobs, bigger brains kind of thing, which a big approach to how I've always done stuff is not always on purpose. It's something that I've reflected on recently, but I kind of call it the Elle Woods approach, where I don't know if you've seen Legally Blonde, but
yes,
know the concept. Yeah, well, you would know your movies, hey. But it's that thing of like, rather than trying to pretend to be someone she wasn't, she succeeded by leaning into the fact that she loves pink and she cares about beauty and hair care and things like that. And I mean, that's how she wins the case at the end, is she's like, hang on a second, you just had a perm. What are you doing in the shower? because she cares about that stuff and she knows about that stuff. So a big part of kind of what I'm trying to do always is go, I don't have to make a choice between being someone who's smart and being somebody who's, I guess, conventionally attractive or sexy or whatever you want to, like, box you want to put that in. But being somebody who can embrace the fact that I do care about how I look and I do get enjoyment from that, but also I get enjoyment from the intellectual stuff or the nerdy stuff or the brain stuff, I guess. So yeah, I guess if I had to sum it up into anything, I kind of had it really early on with the big boobs, bigger brains
Okay.
kind of concept. And once again, it is that like sense of humor, I guess, that I have that is really not taking myself too seriously, because a lot of people would shy away from that. They're like, you can't say that. I was like, well, I just did, so
What are you gonna do with it, right?
yeah, like, well, bit late to tell me I can't now.
Now, to a serious question. There was a Harley in life that was broken. There was a Harley that wasn't complete. Could have been in some people's early on in life, could have been like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So to that broken Harley that's not here now, you're the Harley Davidson of Harley Sinn now. And that's just the thing. I'm surprised you didn't go Harley Davidson as a name, but anyway.
Lots of people go, oh, you didn't do Davidson? It's like, whatever. Sure, call me that. I don't care.
Okay.
As long as you remember me, call me that.
All right. So that broken person, what would you say to that person now that you're the person you are now? Because the things that go along with age and things like that, I understand people always say that you can have wisdom at a young age, but certain types of maturity and certain types of self-esteem issues come to light and they break out. So to the younger Harley, to the Harley you are now, what would you tell the younger Harley if you had a moment to sit at a round table and discuss some things?
So I think there's two things that I'd say that are the kind of, I guess, big things. One would be, I always want to just be like, dude, you've got ADHD, go get tested. But a lot of the stuff around that for me was about the idea that I was like lazy or messy or too emotional or things like that. And I think the thing that I'd want to convey to myself, however I said it, is that a lot of the stuff that you are allowing to be obstacles are actually your greatest strengths when you figure out how to approach them correctly. Because the just do it, or the like forcing yourself against your, when you just hate it and you can't do it and all that kind of stuff, forcing yourself through is not the way to get to your goals. Try different things, because you will find a system that works, and those things that you thought were weaknesses will become strengths, or at least not be obstacles anymore. But the other thing that I'd say is that action changes mindset, mindset doesn't change action, which is a quote from someone that I'm not going to attribute correctly, because I listen to so many things and I read so many things that I often just, it becomes one big melting pot, but I'm not going to claim credit for that idea. But it is something that I think, for me anyway, I have not ever grown or expanded what I'm doing or leveled up, I guess, if you want to go back to the video game kind of thing. It's like, often I think life is very much like that thing where you accidentally defeat a boss before you're really ready, and you're like, oh, so all the enemies now are like 3 levels up and I'm dying as soon as I face anything. But then as you progress, you get better and you get more capable of it. I think life is actually very similar, where you don't become somebody who is capable of more by sitting in your room meditating on it. That can be part of a bigger practice and things like that, but at some point it is action that changes mindset. So go and do the thing. You might only be able to push the line a little bit further, but push it that little bit further and keep pushing it that little bit further, because there's so much stuff now that is so natural to me that I only learned how to do by throwing myself in the deep end and being bad at it, or being scared that I was going to fail, or, you know, all of the different things. And that's something that I try and consciously do now, is go, where do I want to level up and what am I afraid of? So, you know, am I afraid that I'll start doing merch, and that I'm ordering merch at the moment. That's going to be something that gets launched soon. But just that process of doing something that has a slow return, because I've done things for so many years that have a really immediate return. You know, you do a show, you get paid immediately. So you don't have to sit in that waiting period where you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this has succeeded. I don't know if I'm doing a good job. I don't know if I'm making the right call. And you just have to be okay with that process and trust that process to get the payoff down the track. And that's something that I have to adjust to, because it's not how I've worked to this, like, thus far. Twitch is another example. Just get on there and sometimes lose your train of thought mid-sentence, or suck at a game, or go, okay, I can have conversations really well and I can play video games pretty well, but doing them both at the same time is a work in progress. But yeah, I don't think that you level up without just forcing yourself to do stuff, and I'd stay there until it feels normal and then go find a new normal.
Okay. Now, the lasting part, and we're going to use the UK and we'll use the United States. A little bit of a role play that I do with people. So you've got all this stuff accomplished. The next big thing for everybody on earth is to do a TED Talk. A TED Talk means that you have made it. That's me. Once I do a TED Talk, I'll probably retire. If I get one next week, I'll retire. Shows will still come out, but I'll retire. So you're going to do a TED Talk in 2 places that are prestigious. We'll say Oxford in the UK. And then we'll say in the United States, let's get a prestigious university. Let's just use Princeton, because everybody knows Princeton University, or Yale, one of the two. So your conversation is going to be about content creation and the content creation growth, because your success is based on this. And this is just my opinion. You can give me your opinion on success. It's where you started from to where you are now. It's not about how the accolades go up or down or how all that stuff is. Just, you're not doing what you were doing 16 months ago or 18 months ago. And there's been progression in your eyes. So what would be the statement that you would give to all these people watching you? You know, you're going to do a show in at Oxford, and then you're going to do one at Princeton in America. What would that first sentence, or what would you say to the crowd when you have the microphone in your hand and you're ready to just go with it?
I guess there's 2 things. One is, I think a great lesson in life is to only keep track of your own high score. So by all means, look at what other people are doing and what you can learn from them. But especially in a space where it's easy to look at everybody else's numbers and what everybody else is achieving, screw all of that. Focus on your own high score. So if the most engagement you've ever gotten on a post is 30, don't worry about somebody who's getting 30,000. Worry about getting 31, 32, 33 as you go, and just focus on beating your own high score. Because rather than looking at somebody who is in a completely different position with completely different skill sets and probably quite a bit more experience, achieve something that feels unattainable, often that just shuts us down. So we stop doing things, we stop making progress. Focus on your own high score and focus on just trying to do a little bit better. And the only time you ever need to, if somebody else's numbers come in, is go, well, that's just proof that it can be done. But I'm not worried about that. What I'm going to focus on is my high score and where I can get to next. And I think the other thing that a lot of people forget about, because obviously people succeed without this sometimes, but especially if you want to make it part of your business, or you want to make it something that you can do for a long period of time, be likable. And that doesn't just mean be likable online, it means be likable behind the scenes. I've had so many opportunities come my way because people like me. So when they've got the opportunity to throw someone else's name into the ring, they will say my name because they want to see me succeed with them, because they want to support me, and because they know I'll do the same thing for them. And that is something that I certainly didn't do on purpose. I just happen to like a lot of the people that I work with. I love what I do, and I think that comes through quite naturally. But if I was going to go back and kind of go, what is it in my success that is able to be replicated? One, I never cared about what anybody else was making. I never cared about what anybody else was earning, any of that kind of stuff. I always focused on how to beat myself, because the only person who matters to beat is me today, or me yesterday. And then, I think focusing on being likable, because people will come out of the woodwork to go, hey, here's a tip that you might not know about. Here's something that you weren't even aware that existed. Here's a conversation that you weren't in the room for, but your name was still brought up and that opportunity was still made available to you because somebody who liked you was in that room. It's a more complicated way of saying network. But I think people often in this day and age kind of approach networking as a how to win friends and influence people. So it comes across as a little bit sales pitchy and a little bit scammy, rather than just genuinely wanting to connect with people and having it be something that's really natural and being like, even if I'm not trying to sell you anything, like maybe there is something that I want from you, but even if there isn't, hey, you seem really cool, I'm really interested. I think those are the real kind of keys to maybe not that astronomical immediate like, oh my god, I went viral overnight success, but to actually having long-term success and actually being somebody who, even if you're not recognized by as many people, you're more successful, because there's plenty of people across all platforms who have great numbers but are not making the most of those numbers, or don't have the opportunities presented to them where they can actually make a living from it. And if you're not at some point focused on making it part of your life in a way that makes you a living or brings you joy, then it's just vanity. And then you may as well buy your followers and be like, look at me, I've got 1 million followers, because you're just doing it for vanity. You're not actually doing it for any kind of measure of actual success.
Okay, and I like that answer. Now, Harley Sinn, we've come to the end of this episode. So the thing that I do here is I do a testimony for people of just a little bit of time we've talked through our pre-call, through our quick little pause and different things like that. You're an extraordinary person. And when I say an extraordinary person, we go inside that adjective there and we get a little deeper into it. So you have to have fortitude to do what you do. And the reason is because being a symbol, portion of what you do is no matter what we say is you sell sex to a degree, the imagery and all that, and in doing that and still being able to be conceptual and have like a variety to what you do. You're not an OnlyFans person, and that's what's great about you. Like, you have class in what you do, and being able to do that, move over to Twitch, and then still be able to, you're forming a podcast and do all this stuff in a light that is amazing, is great, because not a lot of people can do that. A lot of times things translate to a negative image from selling sex, because people want to be like, hey, this is derogatory. You're doing this at night, and then during the day you want to be this. And you're not even portraying that. You're being very careful. You have a lot of ingenuity to you. And you can't sell that. You can't manufacture that. That's just something you're born with, or it's something that genetically gets handed down to you. So to your parents, to your grandparents, kudos to them for that. Being very humble. You have a characteristic to you that is not something that people carry inside this world. Common decency also. That is the hardest thing to have in this industry or just in content creation as a whole, because people get it. A little bit of success changes people. People go crazy. And when I say crazy, I'm not talking about a mental sense. I'm talking about they have a craze to them. They're like, hey, I'm this, I'm popular. They take that high school vibe and they're like, I am more than just trendy. I am the fad. And you don't do that. And that's something, pat yourself on the back, look in the mirror, do a little extra look to yourself, because like I said, it's a lot of stuff that you have that most people have to get manufactured. That's not manufactured. It's a natural ability. Natural talent is so hard because people force talent nowadays. Just like when you were talking about playing video games, there's some people that are expert level, and there's some people that have a intermediate, and there's some people that are just beginners, but they have everything else around them that make them great. So keep doing all that. Next thing, having solidarity within yourself to know that when you produce something, you can get a positive and a negative reaction, but your reaction to it is staying neutral. Having that is the greatest possible skill that anyone could possess, because if you don't have neutrality in things that you do when you're creating something, you will always get the negative end of things. So I want to thank you once again for having that, and for letting the audience see that in this episode. And it's not a portrayal, it's actually who you are. That is the main thing. There's no portrayal to what you do. You are who you are, and keep doing that. And if you stop doing that one day, become a franchise. Because most things when the things start becoming a portrayal, and I said portrayal of something, not a betrayal, because some people with my English do speak fast. A portrayal, you can just become a franchise like McDonald's or Wendy's or something, because they're a portrayal of what McDonald's used to be. So,
Yeah,
in saying all that, that's your testimony, Harley Sinn. I want you to take that with you. I want you to fold
thank
it up,
you.
put it inside an envelope, and keep it. Because you are an amazing person. Continue doing the content creation you do. And one of the classic things that we do on this episode, we have a shameless plug. Harley Sinn, it's your time to do a shameless plug so everyone can know where they can meet and greet you across the internet, and don't be no holds barred. Tell them wherever that you want them to meet you on the internet. And also, audience, inside the show notes later on, Harley will provide me with tons of information that you will be able to find her and to link up to all of her information. And also remember this, to all audiences, she is in another country from me, so she is over in Australia. So there is a time difference. It's a it's a late time difference, but be with anything in content creation, never be courteous to what you send. Be courteous to what you send. Be courteous to not be courteous to the time. That's what I meant to say, not what you send. Be careful what you send. But time frames, she's like me. I'm up at all different times, so you never know when you'll catch me. So the floor is yours. Please tell them where they can meet and greet you on the internet.
So probably the best place to find me is I've been on Instagram the longest, so that's harley.forever, all words. And from there I've got links to everything else, so including my Twitch, which is also Harley Forever, but there's a number in there, so you can just click straight through. And all the other platforms, TikTok. My podcast will be there when it is ready to go live. All those things. It can all be found in there, so you can just click the link in my bio. Unfortunately, if you are looking for my OnlyFans, it won't be there, but everything else is. I think that's the easiest place to find me, and work your way out from there, depending on what kind of part of what I do you're interested in. You might find that you like me on more than one platform, or you might find that you only like one, and that's cool too. I think every bit is different. And yeah, please don't stress about the time zone. I'm such a night owl. I'm so not going straight from here to bed. I'll be up for ages.
All right, because I just wondered that, because like I said earlier, audience, it's 9 a.m. here, and what are we, about 11 o'clock there now?
Yeah, so it's 11 p.m. here, but I'm a massive night owl, so I work hard, but I work late and I sleep in. So lots of people look at the time I get up and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you sleep in so much. How do you get anything done? It's like, because when you're all sleeping, I'm awake.
And work never stops. Anything in content creation, people, is 24/7. It never stops, even when you're asleep. There's actually people that sleep on Twitch now.
Yeah, I've seen some of that. I gotta say that is one of those areas where there's some stuff I can be like, doesn't do it for me, but I can see where there's an audience for that. That one I'm like, really? Are you sure? I've seen two on TikTok, the ones where you can, if you tip, it makes a noise or something, it wakes them up. I'm like, it would take me about 3 seconds to smash my phone.
Yeah, it would be over for me there. So once again, I am JR from West Virginia and Commonplace, and we have had Harley Sinn on the show all the way from, you said Melbourne, right?
Melbourne.
Melbourne, Australia. Sorry guys that I had to correct that. For some reason, I was thinking about Jason Bourne, Bourne Identity, and that's where I enunciated.
It's pretty common for Americans to say like Melbourne, but which is why I always say think fire burns. So Melbourne.
Okay, Melbourne. Because we would just put a. Go ahead.
Or the other one is, if you listen to a lot of Australians, it does sound like we're saying bin. So Melbourne.
So we'll definitely remember that.
Yeah. It's the real life tip for you is how to say Melbourne.
All right, and thank you very much. So audience, we are signing off now. Make sure you go check her out, and everything will be up on the website, www.wbuncommonplace.com. I know I got a little slow on that one. I had a brain fart. Other than that, guys, yes, we do. Other than that, guys, we are signing off.
Peace out.